Yeah, Ava here says my local MP McAnulty travels to remote areas of the electorate and had to stop advertising those trips because of harassment. Denies opportunities for representation in those remote communities. Absolutely. Yeah, I remember reading that and feeling like that was something that was going to be a big loss.
Yeah.
Gareth says here, watching the debate on the working group tonight, candidates getting heckled while trying to answer questions. Yeah,
but like Simon said, if that heckling is like a part of the robust to and froing, it's different from just being shouted down and stopped. Maybe.
Yeah. Look, I'll put my hand up here, right? I saw John Key in the Westgate Mall in Lower Hutt a few election cycles back. He was literally kissing babies in front of the cameras, and I screamed from the top deck that he was a liar. And look, that's just one of those things. I mean, I remember in Wellington as well, they had a very famous debate series where people were encouraged to come with water pistols and to squirt candidates with bad answers. I love that. Like, we go back a bit, and Stephen Joyce getting hit by a dildo.
Yeah, that's the best. That's the
everyone, including Stephen Joyce, thought that was pretty funny. But now, what if it's not a dildo?
Yeah.
What if it's a brick? The only politician that should have bricks thrown at him is someone like Oswald Mosley. I'm okay with that.
I remember George W. Bush having the shoe thrown at him, and he was and he got out of the way of it quite quickly. So yeah.
Yep.
But absolutely. Yeah, what if it was a knife?
Yep. Free Soul says we have a group of anti-vaxxers that follow our candidates around on street corner meetings. Yep. I think somebody in that, like an anti-vaxxer, had a go at David Seymour at one of his street corners. I saw footage of that. Pursuit here says, I think the anti-mandate protest has changed how people participate in politics. I don't know if the protest itself changed it. I think that the protest was a symptom of how people decided to interact with political structures and that sort of thing. And I think it's very much been influenced by how the Americans are doing it.
I wonder
or how those counter structures decide to engage.
I wonder if after any mass protest, let's think 1981 Springboks tour, which obviously was too young for, obviously, by decades. Like whatever the protests were in the subsequent years, I wonder if they had the feeling of the Springbok tour, the same sort of vibe. In other words, I wonder if this carry on from the Wellington protest is actually because that's just been the last big protest. And it's just people who have done it are still doing it. I wonder if there were 2 or 3 or 4 protests once the Springbok tour was over had the same feel as the Springboks protest. I don't know the answer to that. Maybe we should try and find an expert or a historian to ask that question and find out if it flows on. And if it does flow on, how long for? Or is this unique and people have learned a new way to do it and they're going to hold on to it no matter what?
I've seen a lot of people try and equate those two things, and the anti-tour protests were pretty seismic for New Zealand's discourse on a really emotive issue. Human rights and apartheid and that sort of thing. And I definitely think that the most recent Parliament protests are sending ripples through our discourse. But I don't know if I'm just on the other side of it, so
I'm also not obviously not equating the causes either. I'm just literally looking at a big protest and a big protest. But
I'm just talking about the effect that it's had on, say, New Zealand society. And I mean, I wonder, what. Like, I've almost had a visceral reaction when I've interacted with someone and then sort of realized that they've gone to the Parliament protest, and I'm kind of going, ugh. I wonder if it was the same for people like, oh, what were you up in the weekend? I was fighting the cops to stop the Springboks. Did those people face the same sort of recoil from people that didn't kind of get it to the same degree? It's an interesting discussion.
I'm interested in this idea of, against Posie Parker, it was because people were fighting against hate. But I'm also interested in that there was many people who were thinking that they were fighting for good, having her there. And then this comes down to, and everyone knows what side we're on with that conversation, but if we take a step back, then it comes down to history will tell us who's right and who's wrong. And the same with the mandates. I mean, I'm obviously, again, we know where we stand on that. But I guess what I try and do, and everyone knows that I try and be balanced, we try and be sort of consistent here, is that if one side is going to protest and use tactics and we're okay with it, if the other side protests and use those same tactics, we can't really complain about it. But then we think about Posie Parker was talking hate, right? Whereas our political leaders are just talking policy, but then we're making a judgment that she is talking hate. Now, I think she is talking hate, but there are many who don't. So there are many who think she was talking, women's rights and what's best for society. So those people will be thinking, well, but you shouted down our person who was talking good messages. You can't now defend your politician who's spreading good messages. So yeah, and I guess that's the gray area to try and figure all this shit out, Chewie. Simon was supposed to figure it out for us and didn't do it.
I have very strong views, obviously, on political parties and candidates and the positions that they take as well. But I look at that of going, I am diametrically opposed, or I think that you're a liar, or something like that. Someone like Parker Posie, or say if we had the reborn image of Oswald Mosley marching through the country, that's just evil. That's hate. That is talking about taking out an entire section of your society because of who they are.
Yeah,
like that's a very different discussion, and it would provoke a very different reaction from me.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think I would go to a debate and yell at a candidate for a shitty position or something I felt really strong about. But yeah, I'd be throwing bricks at someone like Oswald Mosley.